to this evening's event on the subject of green hydrogen and ways to collaborate between the UK and Germany. This evening's event is co-hosted by the British-German Association and the Deutsch-Britische Gesellschaft. Many thanks to both organizations, and thank you very much for joining us. My name is Richard Carter. I'm chairman for the North of England for the British-German Association. And in my previous professional career, I spent 30 years in the chemical industry at BASF, and now I'm an independent consultant. Now, before we start the session today, I want to make an important notification, namely that this event is not about the UK government or about UK government policy. This is because, as you may well have gathered, the UK is going into a general election on July the 4th, and there are so-called PERDA rules in place that apply to what politicians, governments can communicate prior to that. So before introducing our distinguished guests this evening, I thought it would be a good idea to show a slide highlighting the special characteristics of green hydrogen, because I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. And this topic is frequently in the news: grey, blue, turquoise, or green hydrogen. This evening, we're talking about green hydrogen. And the key deciding or determining factor is the fact that green hydrogen is based on renewable electricity, either coming from wind or from solar. The traditional method is that hydrogen is produced from methane or coal, and those are very clearly the, dare I say, the old fossil sources. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our distinguished guests this evening. I'd like to start by introducing Gillian Martin, member of the Scottish Parliament, who is current Minister for Climate Action. Gillian was elected as a member of the Scottish Parliament to represent Aberdeen East in 2016, after becoming involved previously in the independence campaign and Women for Independence, and was re-elected in May 2021 to represent the constituency there once more. Gillian grew up in Newborough, Aberdeenshire, where she lives with her husband and dog Ted. Prior to her role as an MSP, Gillian lectured in television production at North East Scotland College and ran her own video production company. Before her appointment to her current role in May 2024, Gillian was Minister for Energy and Environment, following the appointment of First Minister Humza Yousaf. So welcome, Gillian. Thanks for joining us. Moving to Olaf Lies. Welcome, Olaf, and likewise, thank you for joining us. Olaf Lies is a German politician of the SDP, the Social Democratic Party. He was first elected to the Landtag of Lower Saxony in 2008, and since November 2022, he is Lower Saxony's Minister for Economic Affairs, Housing, Transport and Digitalization. Previously, Olaf was Lower Saxony's Minister for the Environment, Energy, Building and Climate Protection. In his professional career, he worked as a lecturer at what is now the Jade University of Applied Sciences in Wilhelmshaven, specializing in electrical engineering, energy technology, renewable energies, and computer science. At the same time, he was involved in a number of development projects, particularly in the automotive industry, and developed and supervised various photovoltaic drinking water projects in Cameroon. So welcome to both our distinguished guests. So much experience, and I'm looking forward to your insights. I would now like to hand over to Ruprecht Brandis, who would like to say a few words. Ruprecht is on the board of the Deutsch-Britische Gesellschaft, and he also heads the Clean Energy Forum. So over to you, Ruprecht, and then we'll move on to Gillian. Thank you.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Good evening to both ministers, and thank you for attending this event. As already has been said, I'm a member of the executive board of the Deutsch-Britische Gesellschaft, director of the climate think tank Clean Energy Forum, and until a couple of months, I have been with BP. I have been with BP in 20 years and actually was heavily involved in green hydrogen. In Minister Lies, we have met a couple of times also at the Lingen refinery. And I just want to give a very brief overview on green hydrogen before we go into the statements and the discussion. I think it is consensus that green hydrogen is key for the industrial transition towards climate neutrality. From an industrial point of view, perhaps the key component. It's very important that we are successful in that regard. And just to give you one figure that is from my previous professional life when I was with BP, refineries in Germany consume 40% of all hydrogen that is used in our country. And to replace that by green hydrogen would be a great climate contribution, a contribution to climate protection. All countries or industrial countries have a kind of a national hydrogen strategy, and so has Germany. And Germany has updated its national hydrogen strategy. It has become more ambitious. I think that is welcomed by everybody. And part of that national hydrogen strategy are international cooperations, cross-border cooperations, which are key to make green hydrogen happen. Why? Because at least in Germany, but I think that is also the case in other countries, there is not enough space or capacity to produce all green hydrogen that is needed in our country. And I think that can probably be said of many countries as well. So international cooperation and cross-border cooperation is very important, is indispensable for making green hydrogen happen. And in that regard, of course, the cooperation between Germany and Britain, and here in particular between Lower Saxony and Scotland, can play a big role. And I think I don't need to say more about this. I think the rest is for the ministers and the debate. And thank you for listening. And with that, I would hand over to you, Minister Gillian. You have the word.
Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone for inviting me for the British-Germany Association. It's a real pleasure to be able to talk about Scotland's hydrogen ambitions and obviously our relationship we have with many of the Länder in Germany, but particularly with Niedersachsen. I'm particularly pleased that I'm joining with Olaf Lies. We haven't met yet, but he has met many of my colleagues over the years talking about this very issue about green hydrogen and the potential that we have to work together. Scotland producing potentially a lot more green hydrogen than we could ever feasibly use domestically. So we have an opportunity to export it and help our neighbours decarbonise as well. So we are already good friends, and that's a good start. This conversation that's been happening about our collaboration in green hydrogen is well underway. We've had Minister Stefan Weil was over in 2022, and Falco Moors was over last month. And that's demonstrating the growing partnership that we have between our science, higher education and research communities, as well as our governments. And long may that continue. We signed a joint declaration of intent on hydrogen. Well, the UK and Germany signed that joint declaration of intent, and it seeks to accelerate on the development of the international hydrogen industry, supporting the UK and Germany to work together in international trade. And we very much, the Scottish Government, welcome this additional framework that it will provide, because we are obviously very ambitious in our goals of hydrogen production, but having those links between the states is vitally important. The enthusiasm within the European hydrogen sector is clear, and the the desire and demand for green hydrogen, as you've just mentioned, is huge, not just in Germany, but across the whole of Europe. And indeed, the interest in hydrogen has grown tremendously in recent years, particularly as we've had successive COPs that are highlighting the issues we have in reaching our climate change goals and keeping a global temperature within 1.5. We think that we've got the assets to bring forward large-scale green hydrogen production. There are many, many innovators and companies that are gearing up and scaling up to be producing hydrogen, because we have got vast offshore wind resources. We've got a skilled technical workforce, largely as a result of our heritage in oil and gas, and highly specialised companies in the energy sector. And I come from Aberdeen, as has been mentioned. We've got the largest subsea cluster in the world. We potentially actually have more electricity than we can realistically at the moment get into our grid in the UK. And with our ambition to have even more generation of offshore wind, obviously with grid infrastructure upgrades happening at the same time, we still will have too much electricity, and we do not want to be wasting this. We want to be producing green hydrogen with it. It's a very key part of our net zero journey. It will play an important role in decarbonising the hard-to-abate sectors such as heavy-duty transport, shipping, aviation, industrial high-temperature heat, and the manufacturing of concrete. So we have our own domestic need for green hydrogen, but as I said, I fully anticipate that we will meet that need and have a lot more to spare and to be able to export to yourselves. We have a number of hydrogen-based projects underway, particularly in production and transportation. We have got some domestic projects, very exciting domestic projects. The H100 project in Leven in Fife is aiming to make the case that hydrogen can be used, 100% hydrogen can be used to heat homes, and that will help prove the health and safety case, but understand the role that hydrogen could play in being a domestic fuel and going into the place of natural gas and getting that public confidence around that. We've got the Cromarty Hydrogen Project that is developing hydrogen production hubs across the north of Scotland, and the Whiteley Hydrogen Project, which is taking place in the Whiteley onshore wind farm, will produce hydrogen to fuel public transport and heavy freight vehicles, and that's down in Lanarkshire in sort of middle Scotland. These will develop into large hydrogen hubs that will be capable of servicing multiple users, and we expect that quite a lot of the carriers like the supermarkets, etc., will be very interested in taking hydrogen from them, because obviously they've got their own reputation to enhance with regards to their climate goals and their public relations, really, about what they are doing. No single region, though, or nation or government can deliver on the hydrogen economy alone, and that's why we're so keen to work with our partners in the lender in Germany, and work collaboratively with you, share our expertise and knowledge, as well as get all those, I suppose, contracts in place for our hydrogen producers to meet the demand that you have. We're already working very closely with Lower Saxony. We've signed a number of international agreements on hydrogen with other German lenders such as North Rhine-Westphalia, Bayern and Baden-Württemberg, as well as with Denmark and Occitania in France. And we're also taking action to realise our potential internationally. We're working with the Port of Rotterdam and strategic partners on an LOHC transport pilot. I've also been over to speak to our friends in the Port of Zeebrugge as well, who are obviously very interested in supplying hydrogen, being an off-taker of hydrogen that would go into Germany in particular. We're a member of the Hydrogen Europe's regional pillar and trans-regional alliances such as the Vanguard Initiative, with its hydrogen pilot bringing together 12 regions, including Scotland, to collaborate on the development of the hydrogen sector. And we're supporting the Hydrogen Backbone Link project, which has demonstrated the potential to connect Scotland to the European hydrogen backbone by either repurposing or optimising existing pipeline infrastructure, of which we have quite a lot. Energy security is obviously a very big topic right now, not least in Germany, given the situation that we have with the illegal war in Ukraine. And I think that has also prompted our ambition up further than it even was previously. Scotland's a proud member of key European alliances, and also we're currently European co-chair of the Under 2 coalition, working closely with our partners in the German Länder to enhance skills, create a regulatory environment, which is obviously nascent and it needs pioneers, and build those strong and resilient supply chain. And we're going to continue to strengthen that bilateral and multilateral relationships to promote regional cooperation and understanding. To realise our export potential, we're currently developing a hydrogen sector export plan. We're hoping to publish that actually in the next few months. Obviously, a general election stops us from announcing anything at the moment. So all these things are going to have to just be held and ready to go after July the 4th. It's an exciting time for hydrogen, but it's a pivotal and crucial point for hydrogen. I think that Scotland's got the ambition to be a world leader in hydrogen, but obviously we can't do it alone. We need the systems in actually transporting it to where it needs to be. We need the collaboration with our European neighbours and the innovation around it. We must work together under the UK-Germany agreement to ensure the interoperability standards, certification, and a common understanding that green means green, because as I think it's been mentioned in the introduction, we have to be very clear that there's only one type of hydrogen that is green, and that's that comes from renewable electricity. I'm also want to mention our Net Zero Technology Centre, not just because it's in Aberdeen and I'm being parochial, but they're working with the German Aquaventus Group, an Aqueductus project that plans to land hydrogen from Germany's offshore waters at Wilhelmshaven in Niedersachsen. And we're building relationships between the Technology Centre and the EU partners to align the North Sea Infrastructure Master Plan, building energy security and resilience in the future energy system, and exploring other export options, including, as I mentioned, LOHC. I think it's an interesting conversation. I think that Europe has had about the type of the form that hydrogen comes to them in as well, and obviously with a lot of the off-taking ports being quite near to people's homes, that's obviously a live conversation as to the safety and security of that as well. We need to help each other develop the sector at pace. I actually think that no one's in competition with one another. The world needs green hydrogen, and whoever is able to pitch in and add to the pot, it's all welcome. I really don't think we're going to be in the space where there's going to be competition around that. It's all going to be about collaboration. And I'm here in the spirit of that collaboration today. Thank you.
Gillian, thank you very much. I certainly learned a lot about the export potential. I was not aware of that. I'm sure that might lead to further questions. But first of all, I'd like to hand over to Minister Lies, to Olaf, to expand on the situation from your perspective from Niedersachsen. Over to you, Olaf.
Thank you, Richard, and dear Gillian. First of all, thank you for making it possible that we have this very interesting meeting, and thank you for inviting me. And let me say a few words to Lower Saxony. Niedersachsen is a pioneer of wind energy, and it's the energy state #1 in Germany, and is in unique location advantages. It's a coast side, so we're really interested in cooperations. We already cover around 100% of electricity needs with renewable sources. And in some areas of Lower Saxony, even more renewable electricity is produced than consumed. And we are the landing point also for the offshore wind energy, and only Germany discussed to build 70 gigawatts in offshore wind energy. And if you see the North Sea as the powerhouse of Northern Europe, there will be built almost 300 gigawatt offshore wind energy. And this is the starting point to discuss. We do not need electricity. We need also molecules. We need hydrogen. So it's a really interesting situation in the countries around the North Sea. But we need more renewable energy for the whole country to decarbonize every sector that is possible to realize it in Lower Saxony. And we need electrical power on the one hand side. There's also a very interesting project. It's NeuConnect with our British partners. That is also the landing point in Wilhelmshaven. It's my hometown. I was born in Wilhelmshaven and live nearly Wilhelmshaven. So it's very interesting to see how an energy region will develop to a green energy region. But on the other hand side, we need hydrogen to realize the project. And I will say it as we discussed it in Germany. It has to be green hydrogen. It's the end of the developing time. But we have to start with a lot of volume of hydrogen. So in the starting point, it could be also blue hydrogen. If we discuss to build pipelines or to build a ship infrastructure or port infrastructure, it should be also possible to transport blue or at the end green hydrogen. It's a little bit a difficult discussion. You mentioned it also, but I think it's necessary to discuss. Blue hydrogen could act a little bit like a bridge to come to climate neutral energy. And there's a need in Germany to import it because we cannot produce as much as we need hydrogen. So we need to import this. Germany in the past and today also import a lot of energy like coal or like oil or also like fossil gas. I think we are going to take the next step right away, the decarbonization and transformation of the economy of Germany. And Niedersachsen should, that's also interesting for us, not only be a transfer region for electrical or hydrogen energy, the clean energy that is needed for the transformation of the economy is available in Lower Saxony, and we are already noticing that companies are very interested to come in regions where there's a lot of green energy as electricity or at green molecules. Hydrogen, you mentioned it, plays a key role in the process of sector coupling for the decarbonization of industry, of mobility, maybe heat demand. It's a little bit difficult discussion in Germany. I don't know what the discussion in Scotland is. Is it possible to use hydrogen for the heating of houses or something like that? In Germany, it's a little bit difficult discussion. And it's also one of the important solutions for the energy storage. It's very important because we cannot store the electricity. We have to store more like molecules. And it's also important of the region of northern Germany, of Lower Saxony, because there are a lot of caverns to store a lot of hydrogen, and we will realize more caverns. And what is really important, Germany said, for us, the hydrogen sector, the hydrogen transport is very important. If you want to transform the economies, companies, they need climate neutral and in the future green hydrogen. But how can they use this green hydrogen if there's no pipeline infrastructure? So we decided in Germany, and it was a notification from the EU, I think 2 days ago, that we can build a starting pipeline infrastructure just for hydrogen, a starting pipeline infrastructure with almost 10,000 kilometers in Germany. And from this 10,000 kilometers, there's almost 50% we can reuse the pipeline that we used former as the gas pipeline for natural gas. And there is almost 50% that has to be built as a new infrastructure. And so a few years ago, we discussed why we need in the future pipeline infrastructure to transport molecules, because everybody said there's only an electrified infrastructure. And I think I'm very happy that it was possible that in the political, the politicians thought about that, and they knew what they are clearly that there is also important to have a molecule infrastructure. That's really a step that we made in the last 2 years. So it's really important for using it also for the bigger companies like steel industry, like refineries, or like the chemical industry. But it's also important for the small and medium-sized companies. It's not only a discussion for the big industry. We often discuss the steel industry, the chemical industry. We've also discussed it for the small and medium-sized companies. For them, it's very important to have a real usable infrastructure to become it. So hydrogen is very important, and in recent years, we have seen successful pilot projects supporting the use of hydrogen in various sectors. And Niedersachsen companies are developing climate-friendly hydrogen technologies, applications together with suppliers, energy producers, and research institutes. And I think that's already interesting for our collaboration between Scotland and Germany, and Scotland and Lower Saxony. Also the collaboration of the research institutes, universities to develop solutions that are not only possible today, we have also to develop solutions for further. So that's, I think it's really interesting. With the hydrogen-powered refuse collection vehicle from Faun, or the fuel cell train from Alstom, we also produced in Lower Saxony. Successful products of hydrogen economy have already been developed and brought to the market in Niedersachsen, which have attracted great international attention. So there are solutions for usable products. That is, I think, very important. And in order to support the ramp-up of the hydrogen economy in Niedersachsen, the state government of Niedersachsen decided last year to provide over 800 million euros in state funds to support the IPCEI projects, important project of common European interest, or hydrogen projects. And it's just a part of the whole financing, 800 million just in Lower Saxony, 1.6 billion euro, also from the federal state, and there's also an investment for the company. So you see that it's really a big investment for hydrogen in Lower Saxony, in Germany, all overall, but also in Lower Saxony. I think it is really important. So what is our idea of the northern part of Germany? It's not only Lower Saxony. We discuss projects. It's I think a discussion all of the coast side of Germany, and there is a really interesting High Five initiative. We are advertising worldwide at trade fairs, at conferences, for cooperation with Northern Germany. So High Five just visited the All Energy Expo in Glasgow. So to have a direct contact, not just for Lower Saxony, we think that we have to develop projects together. And I think what really important is, I therefore welcome the cooperation between Northern Germany and especially Niedersachsen with Scotland. International cooperations and exchange of experience play a crucial role in this process. And since about 4 years, we have a close connection between companies and institutes from Scotland and Niedersachsen in terms of hydrogen. So that makes clear that it's a really important idea for us. And Niedersachsen is therefore actively seeking exchange with international partners. In Scotland, the countries bordering the North Sea are playing a crucial role in this cooperation. And as I said, the North Sea is our powerhouse. It's our powerhouse not only of the idea of electricity, of the offshore wind energy, it's also the idea of green. And that will be the green idea of hydrogen. So producing green hydrogen offshore, producing green hydrogen onshore, transporting green hydrogen. Let's just see the grid in the North Sea, the grid of the electricity power. You have also the need of a grid of transport hydrogen. So there should be also a pipeline grid in the North Sea to exchange and to transport hydrogen. So I think that is really important. I'm really interested to discuss it with you, not only in this meeting. I'm very hopeful that there will be maybe a next step with a direct contact so we can discuss it further on. But I will just at the end of my statement say thank you very much, because we need such meetings like this to discuss what is the European idea of transforming industry, of transforming producing energy. And I'm very hopeful that Scotland and Lower Saxony have the same ideas and can realize a lot of projects together. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Olaf. And your statement certainly made clear the scope of the transformation in terms of infrastructure, the grid, the backbone. You mentioned household heating. That is, I think, a question that might come from somebody. Before we go into the questions, I'd just like to remind the audience that you can submit questions, and they will be coming up on my screen. And obviously, we won't be able to take all questions, but I will then select one or two. I would like to start with a question maybe for Gillian, because first of all, really impressive the export capabilities that Scotland has. How does the Scottish export, let's call it the export machine for hydrogen, how does that link in with the UK's plan? And one of the key topics that you have both mentioned is basically the trade and the transport of hydrogen. So what needs to happen in terms of regulatory frameworks, and what are the issues there? Maybe first of all to you, Gillian. So Scotland connecting with the UK, and then regulatory frameworks, Gillian, and then I'd like to obviously hear your view as well.
Sure. So the transport mechanisms for hydrogen is probably one of the things that I think is actually the biggest nut that we need to crack, actually, because we all know, we will be able to produce hydrogen. We have a development in the North Sea that's got option licenses for options are out just now, called Scotland. It's going to be producing 25 gigawatts of electricity over 17 projects. We've got a target of 2030 for 5 gigawatts of production, and that's half what the UK has said that it wants to achieve. And it's basically built in the Scottish ambition into the UK ambition. But we've got ambition beyond that, actually. For 2045, we reckon that we can produce 25 gigawatts of green hydrogen. Interesting what Olaf was saying about blue hydrogen being almost a stepping stone for some of that, because we have, like, for example, the refinery at Grangemouth and at Mossmorran as well, both of them one across the river from one another. Both of them are looking at the production of blue hydrogen as an initial step, and then building up to green hydrogen as well. It's almost like blue hydrogen proving the engineering of their sites, but also they know they've got an ability to create blue hydrogen tomorrow, basically. But the ambition is for green hydrogen, and both of those sites are very well connected into the gas infrastructure already. Where we're dovetailing, or we have to dovetail in very closely with our UK government counterparts, is around any kind of pipeline infrastructure that is going between the UK and Europe. And obviously, all the powers, and indeed the funding associated with that is so vast that it has to be a UK effort, working in collaboration with our European neighbours on that. We don't have the devolved responsibility for that pipeline infrastructure in Scotland, but we would lobby very hard for that pipeline infrastructure to actually land in Scotland, because we are going to be a major, we're going to be the biggest producer of green hydrogen in the whole of the UK. So it would make sense for it to potentially come into south of Scotland. You asked about the standards and certification around, and here's where I think Scotland and Germany could really work extremely closely, because I don't think we can wait. I don't feel that we can wait for the standards to be agreed at UK level, because we're moving so fast in this. I've got my officials are already working on this. We want to almost kind of like sort of set the standards and say, here's what we've produced in terms of standardization around green hydrogen, and then have that discussion with everyone else. Always go with a blueprint, and then hopefully it would be adapted. And here's where I think we've got real opportunity working with our German counterparts in doing just that.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Gillian, because that is a key point. Thank you. Maybe over to you, Olaf, in terms of from the Lower Saxony point of view, working with the German government, the interplay and this topic of regulatory frameworks, because my experience, 30 years in petrochemical industry, you have to get the green energy to the right place.
Yeah.
And that might be in Germany, might be somewhere else in Europe. So regulatory frameworks and obviously the infrastructure to actually make that happen. I'd be interested in your view.
Yeah, that's right. So first of all, let us have a short view into the future. If you see 10 years further on, you see 2035, I think there will be no problem. There will be enough production of green hydrogen. There will be enough off-takers that will be having a real price that they can pay for the hydrogen, and you have a grid infrastructure that is used. So we start with a problem that there are off-takers that are interested in green hydrogen or blue hydrogen at the starting point, but they do not know what will be the price of the hydrogen. You have investors that are very interested to invest also in production places for electrolyzers with green hydrogen, but they are not sure what is the price they can get from the off-takers. And we have to build an infrastructure. So first of all, I want to say how we realize 10,000, or how we will realize in Germany 10,000 kilometers pipeline infrastructure for hydrogen. We said that is an investment for the grid companies. The grid companies have to invest, but the state level has to say, is there a problem with the future? If it is not economically realized, it is not to real, you cannot realize it economically. Then the state level, the federal level says, okay, we will give money for this project, but we will not invest at the first step. So it's possible for the state level that there will be a really interesting infrastructure without getting enough money from using this pipeline. So that's one of the first regulatory problems. How is the cost of using this pipeline? Also, cost for production, what will the off-takers be able to pay, and what is the cost of transport? So we have to find a very clear and simply ways to realize it. So transport is okay, we can use it. NeuConnect is one of the interesting projects where you have no regulatory where the regulatory of the transport of electrical power is different between UK and Germany. But NeuConnect said that it's possible. So maybe in the first step, we have to build a pipeline, to have a connection, and we have to realize that there are enough off-takers and it will work. But at the next step, also look at 2035, we need a regulatory system for realizing. But if you just discuss how it could be possible and how the regulatory steps should be realized, I have a problem, because I think we will lose time. We have to start now. We have to start to decarbonize the industry, because there is a difficult situation for the industry. So maybe one of the first topics is how it is possible to have enough hydrogen. And Gillian, it's really important to say there will be a ramp up for the green hydrogen. And at the end, maybe in 15 years, I'm not sure, 20 years, there will be only green hydrogen. But for the beginning, we have a need of a lot of hydrogen. It will be blue, and the blue part will go down, and the green part will be ramped up. So first, we have to discuss what is possible for the off-takers to pay for the hydrogen, and how is the cost for producing it, and how can we realize transport pipelines also at the state level, that this is possible to become a first step of the transformation of the industry with the possibility to use hydrogen from Scotland, also in Germany.
Excellent. I think you've outlined the level of ambition that is required, and time is of the essence. And that dovetails very nicely with a question that has come in, a question for you, Olaf. And the question is, what incentives will there be for private corporations to participate in the development of pipelines and the promotion of green hydrogen? Because it is a massive investment. And this question has come in from Christina.
That's really complicated. We discussed it in Germany also with Norway. So the idea is there almost in the beginning blue molecules from Norway? How will invest in a pipeline? So the first step is that we have a project. It's called Aquaventus, and this project Aquaventus has the idea to transport the hydrogen that will be produced on the offshore side from the offshore wind turbines to Germany. That could be realized with funding from state level, funding from Lower Saxony. So you are directly in the end of the German part of the North Sea. So there's just, it's a little bit longer, but there's a gap also to Scotland. So we have to become closer together. That the investment, maybe for Scotland or UK and maybe for Germany, is less, because if we start with the idea that companies have to invest without the security that there will be more tomorrow an off-taker who will pay a lot for transport, it will not work. And I think, and it's one of the problems, we call it as a problem of the Schuldenbremse in Germany. Yes. I'm not sure it is like the same like in Scotland, is that we now have to invest in infrastructure, because infrastructure, I think it's also an important topic of state level, to invest in infrastructure and so make a starting point for the companies who will produce hydrogen and will use hydrogen to realize their projects. If the starting point will be, how can we finance this infrastructure? Just with the idea of the price that off-takers are able or willing to pay, I think that will not work. So we have to find a European solution for realizing infrastructure and be sure that that will not, at the end, the gap, that there is no infrastructure, because with no infrastructure, we cannot use the collaboration between Scotland, UK, Norway, Denmark, Netherlands, Germany, because it's a grid.
Thank you very much. So there appears to be a lot of scope for public-private partnerships going forward, and I think that is absolutely essential. Now, putting my hat on, the question for Gillian, as the person on the street who is hearing a lot about the transition, but worried about the cost, and I want to talk about onshore, because there's this term NIMBY, not in my backyard. Everybody wants green hydrogen, offshore, onshore, but surprise, surprise, nobody actually wants to have onshore turbines near them. So a big topic wherever you go. But Gillian, could you maybe talk about maybe the NIMBY, not in my backyard, onshore, what are the issues, but then talk about the cost and communicating it to the consumer, so that the resistance can be maybe challenged?
Well, this is one of the things that keeps me up at night, actually, because we are not going to reach our climate goals if we do not have public acceptance of what needs to happen in order for us to decarbonise the systems, all the systems that everyone uses in their everyday life. And I don't think that as a top line is cutting through enough. I, interestingly, and probably made myself very unpopular last week, but I had the NGOs, a meeting with the NGOs like Friends of the Earth and Stop Climate Chaos in front of me, and they really wanted to talk to me about our position on oil and gas. And I was saying, right, well, first of all, we're publishing an energy strategy that is about 250 pages, and there's about 2 paragraphs about oil and gas in it. And that's because the Scottish Government don't have any of the powers around the licensing of oil and gas. But one of the things that I put to them was the biggest risk to decarbonising our systems, and the biggest risk to us meeting our net zero goals in Scotland, and indeed the UK and probably wider in Europe, is not about oil and gas. It's about public acceptance of the electricity infrastructure that is going to have to go in. And it's going to have to go in a way that makes the least environmental damage. So that does not mean undergrounding all the cables so that you can't see them. And the narrative around undergrounding has become almost a kind of it's become almost a kind of like false narrative that people are coming saying, I'm concerned about the environment of Scotland, and you're going to have pylons everywhere distributing all this electricity. Why can't they be undergrounded? And then you sort of try and explain, well, if you underground this infrastructure, then effectively you're disrupting all the soil, you're allowing all the emissions to come from that, you're disturbing peatlands. It is the most energy intensive way of doing it. You're going to have the amount of concrete you're going to have is the equivalent of building like a 2-3 lane motorway underground, and a lot of it being in areas of sort of like, you know, importance to the environment. So that's a narrative they're not going to. And the challenge that I put to the NGOs was, I would like to hear them talking about the existential threat to us decarbonising and getting to net zero if the public don't basically hold their noses a little bit and say, well, this is going to happen because we require the energy security, but we also require to stop burning hydrocarbons in our homes to keep them warm. Alongside that, the problem, one of the many problems we have, particularly in the Scottish government with only having devolved levers, is that your general Scottish populace who are going to have to look out their windows and see this infrastructure are all also some of the most fuel poor parts of the UK. We've got the highest fuel poverty in the Highlands and in the northeast where I'm from. Yet those are the areas that are going to have all this infrastructure built in, all the battery storage plants, all the substations. I've just had meetings this morning with some very upset constituents of mine about a substation that is going to be huge, but is going to be very near their houses. And if the NGOs don't stop talking about things that, you know, administrations like mine have nothing to do with, and don't start helping us making the case for the upgrading of the infrastructure, we'll lose. Everyone will lose. Things will end up in the courts, things will end up in public inquiries. But here's another thing that I'd leave you with. I would obviously never use the word NIMBY because I would have my head to play with if I ever said anything like that. But I would say that the transmission operators and the developers of all the production infrastructure need to get an awful lot better at a couple of things. Early engagement with communities and the messaging around it, the communication, working with communities to make what they're doing more palatable, and deploying community benefits, and indeed in some cases compensation to communities in a way that is transformational and leaves a legacy. And I've talked with them so many times about how they can be far more inventive in that space. It is not enough to come in after your plans have been developed and say to the community, oh, but you know, we'll give you some community benefits. Are you needing your community centre painted? Are you needing a new park for the kids? No, we're talking about legacy community benefit. Why don't you go into a community and say, would you like your own wind turbine that belongs to the community and is generating income forever and amen for the community? Do you have a housing shortage in your area? Could we perhaps build some affordable houses? Could we be putting air source heat pumps into your cold buildings, etc., etc.? That at the moment is voluntary. It's not mandatory. I've been calling on the UK government to make both the engagement mandatory and have guidelines around it, but also the benefits associated with it mandatory and have guidelines around it as well. You have to bring people with them. You need to. It's not actually just a case of not in my backyard. People are asking, who benefits, and they do not have the answer that satisfies that question.
Thank you, Gillian. Excellent insights to the potential, well, not potential, but the friction, the conflict of objectives, and how maybe to bridge the needs with communities in some maybe less or even disadvantaged areas. Great insights. Thank you. Olaf, over to you. This subject of onshore wind, it is a big topic. It seems to be a bigger topic in certain German Länder than others. I'd be very interested to get your views on that. And then this topic of the cost and how do we bring people with us so that when taxes might need to be increased or reallocated, how do we bring people along?
Thank you for this question, and thank you, Gillian, because it's one of the important topics that there's acceptance of people, and it's a really difficult discussion. We have different parties with different ideas of solving this problem. We have one party that said we have to decide it and everything is good, but I don't think that it will be work. And we have the way to make possible that there are people in the regions where you build onshore turbines or also cable routes. It's a very difficult discussion, I think there are a lot of cable routes that have to be realized as underground cable, that you have a benefit. So we started in Germany. It was almost after the war in the Ukraine, the Russian war in the Ukraine, because we are in an unbelievable dependence on gas from Russia. 50% of German gas coming from Russia. So we learned that it's not good, and it was cheap, but it's not good to realize it like that. So we know we have to be a little more independent from importing in energy. So people in Germany thought, okay, it might be good to have wind turbines, solar systems to have our own electrical power. And then we decided 2.2% of all of the German area has to be realized with wind turbines onshore. 2.2%. It's a lot, really a lot. There are regions in Lower Saxony that have 4% of their region has to be built with wind turbines. And what is the idea of benefit or the acceptance? It's the idea that from every kilowatt hour that is produced, a part of that will go to the region. So it's 0.2 or 0.3 euro cent for each kilowatt hour that is produced. It's going to the village you are living or to the region, to the nearly region where you are living. That's one of the first steps. Second is, why should this energy only realized from the big companies who are part of the past produced energy? There are just 4 bigger companies that produced electrical power with neutral power or coal power plants. How it is possible to make it that there is a democratical idea of producing energy, so that the people can realize their own wind energy turbines, or the village can realize, or the region can realize their own projects. So they have their own benefit. So I think it's important. I've been living since 20 years, 900 meters far from an onshore wind park, and my children's never said, "Oh, what's that?" They know it, and everything is okay. But if you have this benefit, if you see this wind turbine, says it's my turbine, its energy cost will be reduced, or there is money for the community. There will be built child halls or something like that. That I think it's one, not the only, but it's one of the topics that we have to realize. And another discussion in Germany is that there are an enormous cost of the energy turnaround in Germany, because we will build a lot of offshore wind energy. We have to transport electricity. with a lot of cable infrastructure. And there's a region nearly behind Wilhelmshaven where the Neukonnect project is. It's a tourism region. In this tourism region, there will be 14 cable routes. 14 cable routes. It's unbelievable, just with 2 gigawatts at each cable route. And the idea of a part of Germany like Bavarian or Baden-Württemberg, they said it will be cheaper if there is no underground cable. But if there is no underground cable, nobody in this region will accept 14 cable routes. It's unbelievable. So in Germany, you have a part of Germany who have no wind energy turbines, who have less cable routes, and they say, oh, make it all, everything in the northern part. In the northern part, we say, no, it's not possible. And the last topic is, I said in the beginning, or mentioned in the beginning, in the region where there's a lot of energy, it should be better for the industry to invest in the region where it's directly renewable energy, because the price of energy is less than in other regions, because you do not have to build such a grid. So that's the second part, that there is a development, there are a new industry, that are jobs. And so like this, it should be possible to have more acceptance in the whole community.
Thank you, Olaf. Thank you very much. Great insights. I'm now going to have to wrap up our session because time has flown. I'd like to say a big thank you both to Gillian and to Olaf, our distinguished guests. Some great insights on the potential, the challenges, how we might bridge those gaps, because I personally fully with you in terms of we have to bridge the gap. We have to highlight the benefits to citizens wherever they may be. So thank you very much. I'd like to thank all our participants for joining this evening. Thanks to the BGA, thanks to the Deutsch-Britische Gesellschaft. And I would simply like to encourage any participant who is not a member of the British-German Association to become a member. And I'd like to put a highlight on an event that the British-German Association is organizing next week, next Thursday, on Jewish life in modern Germany. Also a really excellent topic. So once again, Gillian, thank you very much. Olaf, thank you very much. And we wish both sides, first of all, a lot of energy and stamina and successful collaborations. Thank you very much, everybody, and hope to see you soon somewhere.
See you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.